When our leaders in Washington talk about the federal debt and the budget deficit, they're talking in the trillions of dollars. Sums of money so large, it's hard to wrap your mind around the amount. Let's look at the proposed budget for 2012. Estimated tax revenue, $2,627 billion. Federal budget, $3,729 billion. New debt, $1,102 billion. If approved, the deficit would be added to the national debt, which was in excess of $14,200 billion in July. Under the current year budget, the U.S. was expected to exceed the debt ceiling of $14,294 billion by August 2nd. Without Congress increasing the debt ceiling, the government wouldn't be able to pay all of its bills, let alone add the proposed $1,102 billion to the deficit. So how did Congress go about tackling the debt ceiling crisis? Let's remove 8 zeros from these huge numbers and think of Congress as if it were Ralph and his family managing their household budget. Ralph will earn $26,270 this coming year. In the next 12 months, Ralph will spend $37,290, $11,020 more than he earns. Where does Ralph plan to get the $11,020 shortfall to cover his expenses? Of course, he wants to put it on his credit card. Big problem, however. With a $142,940 balance, Ralph has already maxed out his credit cards. Ralph knows he has to do something before he's swallowed up by his debt. So he applies for a $21,000 increase in the credit line to his Taxpayer Express card. But the bank has asked him to come up with a plan to get his budget under control before it will approve the increase. Just as Congress wouldn't allow for tax increases, Ralph is not going to get a second job to earn any more money. And like Congress, Ralph vows to cut his spending over the next 10 years by a total of $24,000, an average of only $2,400 per year. This means Ralph will continue to spend more than he earns. And most of the cuts in his budget won't really take place for a few more years. Ralph doesn't even know where he's making cuts yet, and like Congress, we'll figure that out later. Guess what? The bank approved an increase to Ralph's line of credit. However, despite the increase in his credit line, Ralph will max out his credit cards again sometime within the next 2 years, exactly when the U.S. will find itself bumping into its debt ceiling. But apparently Congress and Ralph think the problem is solved, because both are now on summer vacation. Is there any wonder the U.S. credit rating was cut? If there is to be a silver lining to the downgrade of U.S. credit, it's that it could prove to be a wake-up call to Congress, and hopefully to all of us in how we manage the budgets of our own households. Once our votes are cast, our ability to influence what goes on in Washington, D.C. is limited to writing to our congressmen and senators. But when it comes to our own household budgets, we're the ones in charge. Get your spending under control, live within your means, and find a way to start saving for your retirement. Given some of the choices Congress will be making about Social Security and Medicare in an effort to control spending long term, you'll be glad you worked hard to see your retirement nest egg grow. We'll be keeping an eye on the financial markets, and so should you. P.S. Our apologies to anyone named Ralph.